Today I'm sharing with you my recipe for 1 hour fresh milled flour cinnamon rolls. You will not believe how easy they are to make and that they're ready in just 1 hour. Welcome y'all to Robin on the Farm. Today I'm sharing with you one of my very favorite recipes of all time. This is a recipe for fresh milled flour cinnamon rolls. Not only that, these are 1 hour fresh milled flour cinnamon rolls. This is probably one of my most made treats over the years. I love these. These are fantastic. You've got to try them. So let's just get started on this really easy recipe. I'm going to start with 1.5 cups of lukewarm water. You want it to be about 100 to 110 degrees. Just pour that right on into your mixing bowl. Now today I'm going to use my Zacme stand mixer. This is a great stand mixer. It has a 500 watt motor, so it's nice and strong for our fresh milled flours. A lot of times I'll use my Bosch mixer, but today I pulled out my Zacme. So these are both great. I recommend Bosch's and Zacme's for fresh milled flour. I leave my KitchenAid back on the counter back there because I have burned out 5 KitchenAids over the years because it's just not strong enough for fresh milled flour, at least the ones that I have. To make these fresh milled flour cinnamon rolls, I'm measuring in cups and spoons today, but on the printable recipe, I'm gonna leave this recipe in grams too, because I know a lot of times when you make fresh milled flour breads, you like to measure in grams. So this will be on my website, robinonthefarm.com, and down in the description. Okay, let's get back to these cinnamon rolls. After the 1.5 cups of lukewarm water, now I'm gonna add 3 tablespoons of honey. I'm just using this organic honey from the grocery store. Use whatever kind of honey that you want. You can also use sugar, monk fruit, maple syrup, any kind of sweetener that you want. But 3 tablespoons right on in with your water. I did spray this little container. It does help your honey come out a lot easier and not get stuck. One thing to keep in mind is that if you use honey in this recipe, a lot of the honeys will have different flavors. Some can be nice and sweet, and some can actually be a little bit bitter, so be sure not to use a bitter honey in this recipe. It won't taste very good. I've done that before. Now after the honey, now it's time for some oil. I'm gonna use this coconut oil today, but you can use any oil that you want. I'm gonna use 3 tablespoons of oil. You can also use 3 tablespoons of melted butter. Just put that right on in there with everything else. Now it's time to add the yeast. Now you can use instant yeast or active dry yeast in this recipe. Either one will work just fine. I'm gonna use the SAF instant yeast today, and I'm gonna use 1.5 teaspoons. I'm just gonna sprinkle that right on top of all the other ingredients. So 1.5 teaspoons. Now I like to buy my yeast in these 1 and 2 pound packages. It's way more economical to buy your yeast in these big packages. And then you store it in the freezer and it won't go bad. It'll last for years and years and years past the expiration date if you store it in the freezer. So if you're gonna be doing a lot of baking, like I really recommend that you should, buy it in these big packages, store it in the freezer, you get it out right in time to make your bread, put it back in the freezer, and it'll stay good forever. You don't need to let it come to room temperature or anything like that before you use it in your bread making. Now I'm gonna add some vanilla to my dough. I think that using some vanilla extract in your cinnamon roll dough makes it taste just that much better. So I'm gonna use 1 teaspoon of this pure vanilla extract. Just add that right on in. Oh, it smells good. So I milled up 500 grams of hard winter white wheat. That was 2 2/3 cups of berries. Now when I ground it up, I still had 500 grams of fresh milled flour, and this is about 4.5 cups of fresh milled flour. Now I used my Nutrimill classic wheat grinder. I have had this exact wheat grinder since 2003. I was a newlywed, I went with my husband, we bought this just shortly after we got married. We had stored a bunch of wheat. That was one of the very first things that we did. We got a bunch of wheat and different food storage items for our food storage. And I was so excited to go get this wheat grinder because I could finally mill up some of that grain and make some bread. And I did that. I had no idea that 22 years later, I'd still be using this wheat grinder. And I wish I knew how many pounds of grain I've put through this. I wish I knew how many loaves of bread I've made using this Nutrimill classic wheat grinder. I love this thing. It's near and dear to my heart. Okay, so this is 500 grams of fresh milled flour or 4.5 cups. You might want to grind up just a little bit more than that in case you need to add a little bit to your dough as it's kneading. But this is 500 grams and this is what I'm gonna use today. So I'm gonna add it right on in to my mixing bowl. Now these next two ingredients are totally optional, but I love what it does to my fresh milled flour breads. This first one is vital wheat gluten. I'm gonna add 1.5 teaspoons of this vital wheat gluten. This vital wheat gluten helps with the rise and the texture of your fresh milled flour breads. I'm also gonna add 1.5 teaspoons of this dough enhancer. And this does the same thing. It helps give you a smoother texture. And I just really like my fresh milled flour breads when I use this. Just like my yeast, I store my vital wheat gluten and my dough enhancer in the freezer, and it lasts for years like that too. Okay, after that, now it's time for some salt. I'm gonna add 1.5 teaspoons of salt. Now you can use any kind of salt that you want. You can use the pink Himalayan sea salt. You can use white iodized table salt. This is my salt of choice. I love this Redmond's Real Salt. This is an ancient fine North American sea salt. So I'm gonna add 1.5 teaspoons of this salt. Don't pour it over your mixing bowl. Definitely measure it out over another bowl in case you over pour it, just like I just did. So 1.5 teaspoons right on in there. And those are all of our ingredients for these 1 hour fresh milled flour cinnamon rolls. Now it's time to get our ingredients mixing and kneading. I'm gonna turn this on to a low speed. I'm gonna turn this on to speed 1. I'm gonna give it about a minute or two and just let all of those ingredients get incorporated, and then I'm gonna check on my ball of dough. That's when I need to see if I need a little bit more flour, a little bit more water. I'll show you exactly what this should look like, and then we'll turn up the speed and get it kneading. The hydration of my dough looks perfect. It's not too wet and sticky. If yours is, add a little bit more flour. But this looks great. I'm gonna turn it up to speed 2 and let it knead for 8 minutes. My dough for the cinnamon rolls has just a few more minutes to knead. While your dough is kneading, go ahead and make the filling for your cinnamon rolls so that you're not waiting after your dough is done to get this made. So to make this filling, you need 1 stick of softened butter. Mine got a little bit too soft, but 1 stick or a 1/2 cup of softened butter. I definitely don't want to use melted butter. It'll be a little bit too liquidy when you try to put your filling into your cinnamon roll. So softened butter is best. To your softened butter, you want 1 cup of packed brown sugar. Just put that right on in there with your butter. I'm using light brown sugar, but you can use dark brown sugar just the same. And to that, I'm gonna use 1 tablespoon of cornstarch. Now this is optional. If you don't have it, don't worry about it, but this will make your filling thicker, smoother, and will help prevent it from oozing out of your cinnamon rolls. So I definitely like adding a tablespoon of cornstarch. Just add that right on in there. And now we need some cinnamon. This is ground cinnamon. I'm gonna use 1.5 tablespoons of this ground cinnamon. And those are all of the ingredients for the filling. Now you just wanna whisk these ingredients up really well, and you want it to be a paste-like consistency. You don't want it much runnier than that. You don't want it much thicker than that, but a nice smooth paste is what you're looking for. While I was mixing up my filling, my mixer stopped. So the 8 minutes is up, the dough is done kneading. So it's time to get this filling into this dough. So here is the dough to my fresh milled flour 1 hour cinnamon rolls. Look how nice this dough is. It's tacky, it's not too sticky, it's not too dry, it's nice and pliable. Oh, it's such nice dough. Now for my 1 hour fresh milled flour breads and rolls and these cinnamon rolls, I don't even worry about window pane. So this dough just got done kneading. I took it out of the bowl and we're immediately gonna press it out and turn these into cinnamon rolls. So we're gonna press this out into about a 12 by 18. That is about right. So I'm gonna use my rolling pin and just start rolling this dough. Okay, mine is looking good. Now I'm gonna grab my filling. This is what my filling looks like. You can see it's a nice thick paste, and I'm gonna spread this all over this dough. I like to use this offset spatula to spread this filling all around. It makes it a lot easier than just using a rubber spatula. I like to spread my filling close to the edges, but not quite to the edge. Oh, this is a nice, thick, paste-like filling. Okay, this is looking great. Now it's time to roll this up. Now you can roll it from the top or from the bottom. I'm gonna go ahead and roll it from the bottom. Fold it up, and then I'm gonna start rolling it. This dough feels really nice. You can see it's really easy to manage. It's not too sticky. It's a really nice dough. Okay, now I'm gonna pinch the seams together. That'll help your filling not to fall out while it's baking. Now that this dough is all rolled up, it's time to cut it into cinnamon rolls. Now this recipe makes 12 cinnamon rolls. So I'm using this 9x13 cast iron baking dish. This is what I'm gonna bake my cinnamon rolls in. I've poured about a tablespoon of olive oil into this baking dish. So now I can put my cinnamon rolls in there and they won't stick. So to cut your cinnamon rolls, you can use a bench scrape, you can use a knife, you can use dental floss, you can use whatever you want to use. Just be sure to pre-measure a little bit so that you don't end up with really huge cinnamon rolls and really little ones. That does help. But I just like to use my bench scrape tool and then just put it right on into my 9x13. Now they might look a little bit funny shaped, but as they rise, it'll all even out. Here are all 12 of my fresh milled flour cinnamon rolls cut and put in the 9x13 baking dish. Now they might not look perfect, but these are gonna taste amazing. Homemade does not have to look pretty or perfect, and that's something to keep in mind. These are gonna rise, they're all gonna even out, and we're gonna cover them with some really yummy icing, so these are gonna be great. Now this is a 1-hour recipe, so to speed up the rising process, I'm gonna turn my oven on to 350 degrees. I'm just gonna let it heat for 2 minutes, and then I'm gonna turn it off. Then I'm gonna put these cinnamon rolls into the oven to rise. In the slightly warm oven, I'm gonna let these rise for 20 minutes, and then it'll be time to bake these. So I'll show you these in 20 minutes after they've risen. I turned my oven on for 2 minutes, and then I turned it off. And now I'm gonna let these cinnamon rolls rise in the slightly warm oven for 20 minutes. It's been 20 minutes and our fresh milled flour cinnamon rolls have been rising in the warm oven. Don't these look great? Now I have my oven preheating to 350 degrees. Once it's preheated, I'm gonna throw these in to bake for about 30 minutes. Our 1-hour fresh milled flour cinnamon rolls are fresh out of the oven. Look how good these look. I let these cinnamon rolls bake for 31 minutes. I let them get a little bit darker than I would a typical dinner roll. And that's because when you have fillings, sometimes you need to let them go a little bit longer to ensure that you don't have any doughiness inside. So I don't want these to be doughy at all, so I let them get a little bit darker than you would think. And these are gonna be perfect. Now I'm gonna let these cool off just for a little bit, and while they're cooling, I'm gonna get started on the icing. Don't these look good? And they smell like rich vanilla and cinnamon. Oh, and they don't even have the icing on yet. These are so good. And these are a treat that I like to serve to my family. Because they're made with fresh milled flour, I feel good about it. Okay, so let's go ahead and get this icing made while these are cooling off. Now, we like a lot of icing, so I'm technically making a double batch of icing. If you don't want this much, I'll leave you a single batch recipe and a double batch recipe. This is the double batch. So to make this icing, it's kind of an icing, kind of a glaze. I'm using 4 cups of powdered sugar. And to that, I'm gonna add 6 tablespoons of melted butter. Okay, 6 tablespoons right on in there. This is a really cool cast iron melting pot. I like melting my butter on the stove. So 6 tablespoons. And to that, I'm gonna add some pure vanilla extract. I'm gonna add 1 tablespoon of this extract. Smells good. And to that, I'm gonna add a 1/4 cup of milk. This is whole milk. You can use any milk that you want. If you wanna be really rich, you can use some half and half or some cream. That would be really good. But this is just some whole milk. So a 1/4 cup right on in there. Then I'm gonna take my Danish dough whisk. I'm just gonna whisk up these ingredients. Now this is where you can make it a little bit thicker or a little bit thinner, just depending on how you like your icing for your cinnamon rolls. I also make a really good cream cheese frosting, but we just preferred this one, so this is the one I'm sharing with you today, but I will share with you that cream cheese frosting another time. And this is what my icing looks like. Doesn't that look good? It smells really good too. It smells like vanilla. Oh, smells good. Okay, so resist the urge to put your icing on too early. If you put your icing on while your cinnamon rolls are too hot, it's all just gonna melt on in there. It does taste good at first, but then as your cinnamon rolls sit, it can make them a little bit soggy and not so good. So I like to spread my icing on when my cinnamon rolls are warm, not hot. And it just lets your icing not melt, keeps it a really good texture and consistency. So I'm gonna give these a little bit of time to cool off, and then we'll spread our icing on top of these yummy cinnamon rolls. I've let these cinnamon rolls cool for about 30 minutes. They're still warm, but not too hot. So I think this is gonna be the perfect time to put the icing on. So here is my icing. Doesn't that look good? I like this texture, I like this consistency. So this is what I'm gonna spread onto my cinnamon rolls. Now, like I said, this is a double batch. We really like icing with our cinnamon rolls, but you can definitely make just a single batch if you'd rather. This icing smells incredible too. All right, I'm just gonna spread this icing all around. And these are still a little bit warm, so the icing is gonna melt into them just a little bit. Oh, it's gonna be so good. And there we go. Don't these look good? These cinnamon rolls were so easy to make. They're ready in just 1 hour, and they are such a special treat. Oh, these look absolutely fantastic. I am ready to eat one of these. Look at that. Doesn't that look so good? I feel like it has just the right amount of icing on top. The filling, look at that. Amazing. You cannot even tell that these are made with fresh milled flour. These are absolutely delicious. These fresh milled flour cinnamon rolls are one of my all-time favorite recipes. I've been making these cinnamon rolls for almost 20 years. I can't even believe that much time has gone by, but these are definitely a family favorite, and I think that you'll like them too. So be sure to print off this recipe. It'll be down in the description and on my website, robinonthefarm.com. I'll leave it in cups and spoons and in grams. Make these and let me know what you think about them. Thank you so much for being here with me on Robin on the Farm. I so appreciate y'all watching and all of your support. It really means the world to me. I will see y'all next time. If you're looking for a healthy alternative to plastic bread bags, check out our handmade beeswax bread bags. They'll be on my website, robinonthefarm.com.
Robin's in the kitchen, dough beneath her hands, wheat from the fields and eggs from her land. Sunlight through the window, a warm golden glow. She's working hard to make that dough. With flour on her apron, loving each knead, ground wheat fresh, sowing her seed. The smell of fresh bread rises in the air. Simple life without a care. In Robin's kitchen, dreams come alive.